Hello, it's Amy, and I'm here with a book haul. It's kind of chilly outside, so the first thing I did getting into my apartment after hauling these books home was to make a cup of tea. And I think it was very fitting. I was originally going to pour a glass of wine, but I was reading one of the books I picked up on the bus titled Good Morning Midnight by Jean Rice. And in it, the character asks for, I think, a glass of brandy or sherry or something along those lines. She offers this guy money to go out and get it, and he says, "No, I'm going to make you a cup of tea instead." And I thought, well, a cup of tea sounds good, so I made a cup of tea. It's vanilla Earl Grey. And I thought I would sit down and do a quick haul. We'll see how quick it really is, but do a haul of the books I picked up. And so this one is just a little paperback. I kind of grabbed it at the last minute when I was getting ready to check out because there's a row of, these little pocket paperbacks near the cash counter at Black Squirrel Books. And I grabbed this one first of all because the cover caught my eye. It's kind of dramatic and stunning. But second of all, because it's set in Paris, and this tiny little description on the back kind of piqued my interest. It says, Sasha Jensen is back in Paris, where she had been her happiest and also her most desperate. She is picked up in the Dome by a young man who perhaps mistakes her for a rich woman. She still has her fur coat, and she begins dizzily to feel that she is still alive, but now her past lies in wait for her in cafes, bars, and dress shops. And so I'm about halfway through, and as I'm reading, it's somewhat difficult to almost keep track of what timeline we're in because there's several timelines happening. There is the Paris of her present day, and then there's the Paris of her past. And we learn pretty early on that she actually lived in Paris up until about 5 years before the events of this novel. And it's the generosity of a friend that sent her back from England to Paris. She seems not to have been doing too well in England, and so her friend said, why don't you take a rest, a holiday in Paris? Why don't you go back there? And her friend finds her a hotel to stay in and provides her with some money. But she's somewhat lost when she gets there, and there seems to be, ghosts in every corner. Ghosts of failed jobs that she didn't keep for more than 3 weeks. A ghost of hunger, the ghost of this child that she apparently gave birth to who died. And she is heavily drinking in her memories. And she recounts, this 3-week stretch where she had no money left for food, and she was living in her apartment or hotel in her room, and it was paid up till the end of the month, and she had paid for breakfast until the end of the month, and so she was living on, the croissant, the coffee that arrives each morning, and, the occasional super bottle of wine she could get from well-meaning strangers who assumed she was sick, and that's why she was in her room and sleeping 15 hours a day because she's very fatigued. And now she's back, and she is wandering about this city, visiting her old haunts, her old cafes, and it's very tragic and depressing, and you're getting all the trauma absolutely coming to you. And it almost reminds me of in a way, The Lonely Passion of Judith Hurd, which was a very good novel that I read a few years ago, about a woman sort of in a similar circumstance. Certainly this woman is in a worse circumstance, and she's not in this Puritan atmosphere as Judith Hurd is. But, these two women who are somewhat mature in years, who are alone, and who are heavily drinking, trying to figure out exactly what to do with their life and how to survive. And there's a line that keeps coming up she seems to think that people, are looking at her and questioning and wondering, why didn't you throw yourself into the Seine? And she's almost asking herself this question, while also kind of assuming that everyone who looks at her is wondering the same thing. And little by little, the whole story of her life is getting pieced together, and I'm quite enjoying it. Never read anything by this author before. As I said, picked it up on a whim. And where I left her, she was having some tea, and so I decided to have some tea as well. And then when I was in the shop, I came across 2 volumes, A Tour Through England and Wales, Defoe, and they're in nice condition. It's not too often that you see the matching set of the J.M. Dent books, together and in such nice condition. And so I thought, that's right up my alley. I do like a good travel memoir, and I mean, it's Defoe. And I was just kind of surprised to see them there together. And so these are early Everyman Library J.M. Dent editions in very nice condition. They seem as though they've hardly been read. This is volume 1. You've got your characteristic, highly decorated title page here. And I'm just looking for the publication date here. The indication here seems to be that sometime in the 1920s, because it said this edition is based on a 1927 edition of the work. And so that's very nice. I've never read this book, but it seems to be, a travel guide or a travel memoir of sorts. We have the names of cities and regions in England, and I would assume he'll guide us through each of those regions, perhaps a journey he took himself, or perhaps just an overview that he wrote from his armchair. We'll see what that is. And then these were kind of fun. There was a small shelf full of these in the dust jackets, these very colorful dust jackets. And they were on a high shelf. If I was up on my tiptoes, I could reach them, and I managed to get these down. And this one caught my eye first. This is A Writer's Notebook by Somerset Maugham. And I already have this in one of those orange penguin paperbacks. But I saw this, and I was like, yep, we're going to get this, and we're going to trade out the copy, because the dust jacket on this is beautiful. And we open it up, and it seems to be some sort of club edition, because on each of the dust jackets, there's a note that says this volume must not be sold to the general public. It is one of the special editions produced for sale to its members only by the Readers Union of 38 William the 4th Street, Charing Cross, London, and of Letchworth, Herts. Membership of RU may be made at all bookshops, and an illustrated prospectus is available free of charge from RU London. And we've got a page here that's not entirely separated. It's kind of connected by the corner. 1951. And so these are obviously, book club editions from the Readers Union, as it's called. I've not heard of this book club, but they were beautifully produced. And as the one of the booksellers was telling me, they got, I think it was maybe a dozen or more of these. They got these in from a single person. And I was only interested in the Somerset Maugham. And then this one caught my eye as well. Unfortunately, it's got this horrid damp spot here. It seems to be, water damage or something at some point. But this one is called Coming Down the Seine. And the title caught my eye. Quote on the back. And there's not much of a description here, other than, here on the flyleaf of the dust jacket, talking about the wood engravings. And this is 1955, there are beautiful engravings throughout. But it does seem to be a book about the Seine, and I think it might be a travel memoir of sorts, specifically about that river. Because we start off with a description of a marble statue that is along the Seine. There are chapters, so it could be a novel, but my first kind of impressions, indications here are that it's a memoir of some sort, or else it's a novel made to look like a memoir. And I'm sure I'll find out here soon enough. But I thought, these were too cute to pass up. And I might go back and look at some of the other titles later. My arms were kind of full, and I had hit my spending limit for the day. And then I was poking around looking for some essays. I didn't find the particular essayist I was looking for, but I did find some other interesting ones. So this is a Camelot Classics edition of essays by Leigh Hunt. We've still got the battered paper label here. No dust jacket on this one. It looks like it's probably been crushed under a stack of other books or stored on a shelf with books packed in too tightly. But the full title here is Essays by Leigh Hunt, edited with introduction and notes by Arthur Symonds. This is a London printing. And what caught my eye here was in the very back, as I was flipping through, there is a chapter titled My Books. And if you know me, you'll know that anything related to someone's books or libraries in an essay format is going to attract me. And I flip back, and My Books begins with, sitting last winter among my books and walled round with all the comfort and protection which they and my fireside could afford me, to wit, a table of high-piled books at my back, my writing desk on one side of me, some shelves on the other, and the feeling of the warm fire at my feet, I began to consider how I loved the authors of those books. And so, yeah, right up my alley. And there's some other interesting sounding titles in here as well. Coaches, The Old Lady, Deaths of Little Children, The Sight of Shops, Pocketbooks, and Keepsakes. So there's that one. I also pulled this rather battered white, well, it was once upon a time white or beige, probably white, little leather-bound book. There was once also a ribbon bookmark, no longer connected to the spine. I find on a lot of these older little books, the ribbon bookmark is left in between pages and it just rots off right at the spine. And so obviously someone went to move it at one point and it completely disintegrated. But what caught my attention here was a chapter or an essay, essay 6. I think that's essay 6 there, titled Feelings of Immortality in Youth, where he begins with, no young man believes he shall ever die. There's an essay here titled On Consistency of Opinions, and The Character of the Fox. And so I thought that was, intriguing enough to pick up as well. And, well, digging around, I also came across this cute little James Boswell. And this is Tour to the Hebrides with Dr. Johnson. And I do like Boswell's biography of Johnson. And this little Collins edition was, cute and perfect enough that I thought, oh, that'll be great to toss in my bag, perhaps when I go on vacation this summer. And yeah, it's quite nice. It's this little flexible leather bound, and we've got the characteristic Collins end papers. And let's see, does this one have a publication date? Yeah, so this is from 1955. Feels like it's hardly been read, although, there's someone's intricate, look like a homemade bookmark here, because that is delicately folded and cut and folded paper here. So that's kind of a cute surprise. I didn't notice that in the store. But yep, there is the James Boswell. And I also came across another J.M. Dent title, and I've already read this book. I own this book, but I own it in a modern library, kind of unpleasant edition to read. And so I saw this quarter bound leather version here. The leather's kind of chipped up along the spine, but it's the solidity of the book that counts to me in the size. So this is Biographica Literaria by Coleridge. And it's actually rather unusual to me that it's partially bound in leather, because obviously, this is kind of the same publisher here. Most of them are just bound in cloth and paper, but here we have cloth and then we have leather, and this is the first I've seen of the J.M. Dent Everyman Library in the leather. And even I open up the book here and the paper is thicker. It's got this texture that seems to indicate that it's at least the end papers here are probably linen of some sort. The rest of the book is just your standard paper, but it's a thick paper. There's that characteristic, very detailed and intricate title page there. But this one seems very, very pleasant for a potential reread of Biographia Literaria in the future. Then I came across a novel, a 1960 Penguin by G.K. Chesterton, The Innocence of Father Brown. I was looking for essays, but a novel here will do. I've not read any of his novels. And it's always fun to come across one of the older penguins in good condition. And this is, I'm assuming, a UK penguin here. Yeah, Edinburgh. Because on the back we have not for sale in the United States. And it's not clear whether these were sold in Canada at the time. It's kind of hit or miss with the penguins. Some stuff from Great Britain shows up in Canada for sale. Some stuff does not. So there's that. And I don't think there's really... Oh, here, yeah, there is a little bit of a description. The Innocence of Father Brown. Father Brown had an odd appearance, a short, dumpy man with a moon face, a dog collar, a large umbrella, and an absent-minded air. A notable advantage to a great detective, this eccentric appearance. Any criminal taking his first look at Sherlock Holmes would think of bloodhounds instinctively, but no one would suspect Father Brown. And so it's a detective novel, and it did catch my eye in the mystery section, which is not usually where I look, but when I see, the vintage penguin spine, I often go over and take a closer look regardless of what section the book is in. And we are getting near the end. We have two more here. One is a work of fiction. I know nothing about it, but it did catch my eye. The Notebook of Malt Lurid's Brig by Rainer Maria Reich. And it is from 1972. And this one, I opened it up, and the opening line is what caught my interest. The opening line says, "People come here then to live. I should rather have thought they came here to die." And, the dust jacket's gone, so there's no description. But from flipping through and looking at a few pages, the gist seems to be that this narrator, whoever he is, has gone perhaps to some sort of institution or some sort of place for invalids or something along those lines, and is reflecting on being among these people who are, I don't know, trying very hard to live while they are perhaps dying or ill or depressed or something like that. I think I'll soon find out. But in the first little bit, they are, observing the other people, thinking about a past stay in a hospital. Maybe it's a sanatorium of some sort, to use an old-fashioned term. But yeah, so there's that one. And then there is an Antwerp, France. And I don't think I've read any Antwerp, France, but it's a name that's come up in several things I've been reading recently. And so I saw this, orange hardcover here, The Opinions of Jerome Conyard, and thought, maybe it's time to give Antwerp, France a try. And it does help that there's this lovely stamp in the front here with Antwerp, France. And translation by Mrs. Wilfred Jackson. So this is 1923, this edition. And the font and the printing style is quite nice. And so I'll see what this book and what Antwerp, France are all about. But that's the haul. Good little haul here. I'll see if I can put them up in front of the camera again, do the thing. I already posted some pictures on Instagram. But yeah, spent a little bit more than I intended. I thought, I haven't been to Black Squirrel Books in a while. I'll just pop in, maybe pick up 2 or 3 books before I go on my way to the theater. And I ended up buying all of these to the point where by the time I made it to cash, my arm muscle was sore. And then I kind of regretted, but not really regretted, having to haul these with me to the theater and to the restaurant and all the way around for several hours before I made it back home. But I saw Top Gun Maverick. It was actually my second time seeing it tonight, because I did see it last weekend as well. And I'm the kind of person who likes to go to the theater about every weekend. And unfortunately I would say unfortunately, but I did enjoy seeing the movie for a second time. But unfortunately this weekend there was nothing new coming out that interested me, and there was nothing playing that I hadn't seen yet that interested me. And so I thought, well, I really loved Top Gun Maverick last weekend. May as well go see it again, and it was just as good the second time. And yeah, great film, good book haul, perfect Saturday, and I'm going to finish my cup of tea here.